you obviously dominated the hedge fund era, like totally dominated it, right? I mean, you were making 7 figures. We'll just call it that, right? Which, I mean, was awesome. Do you think that they'll ever get back into the game?
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to come back stronger. So I think I did really good with funds because I built relationships. I'll tell that story. So I got it because I think people want to know, like, how did you do that? So I got a deal in Austin, and then I did a search for buyers in that area. You know, you look for buyers in the area, and I found a buyer, and I clicked on their linked properties in PropStream, and they had 23,000 properties under management or under ownership. I was like, holy crap! I'm like, who are these guys? So then I called them for 3 months straight, like nonstop. And it's actually when in the produce business, you know, follow up and persistence is everything. In the produce business, when I got Whole Foods, I emailed them and Walmart, I think for 3 years straight, until they finally like came on board. So it's persistence is key, right? And so I kept calling him and finally like, listen, there's a guy named Joe in Arizona. He's our acquisitions manager. Reach out to him. We built a great relationship. We became friends. And then I just started doing a lot of deals with that fund. And then when we're talking, he would mention other funds. So I'm like, I'm going to write that down. Yeah. And then I'll reach out to the other funds. And that's kind of what helped me build that business. And then talking to Art Sanchez, we were talking and he told me like, oh yeah, we did like 280,000 this month. And I'm like, you're selling to funds, aren't you? He's like, how did you know? I'm like, dude, to do those numbers, you got to be selling to a fund. Yeah. He's like, and so him and Amir had started a little mastermind. They brought me in. It's called Collective Greatness. And so it was like 6 companies, and we still have the mastermind, and we all chat, and we kind of exchange ideas. We have a group chat. So that mastermind really helps as well. So that kind of helped us all level up to a degree. And so that was kind of how we did well with the hedge funds. Yeah. It was really a game changer.
I love that. Yeah. And I think like another alternative too is just to work with somebody who has the relationship with the hedge fund too, right?
Correct.
Which I think you ended up realizing at a certain point. And you didn't work with everybody, but I remember you working with people that you knew that you could trust.
Yeah, correct.
And then they would just funnel the deal through you. Yeah. And you would work directly with the fund. And we did that.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, with
like,
you guys. Yeah,
we would send you deals.
Correct.
Yeah, and if we, there was different funds at the time that you had a relationship with that we didn't, at that time, and that worked really well too.
Yeah, I think there was a time I was submitting like 40 deals a month. It was quite a bit.
Yeah,
so it was going well,
which is awesome. Yeah,
but then it started to fall off. But yeah,
sure.
Yeah, but talking on that. They're going to come back stronger. Like I mentioned, we were at the IMN and they mentioned, and they were doing like a breakout session. And they said that single family is the next asset class for Walmart.
Wow.
Or for Walmart, for Wall Street. And so like clearly that tells you, well, if that's their new asset class, they're going to go huge in that, right?
Yeah.
And right now, I think 3 to 5% of their capital is for single family.
When do you think they'll do that?
More. I think once we hit the bottom of the market, it might be, I think, 6 more months. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I do believe they're going to come back stronger than ever. And from what I hear, they want to own like pretty much everything under 350, 400.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do it. I think they're really going to dominate. They're going to make all of us renters.
Sure.
The ones
Europe is already that way, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of other parts of the world.
That's right.
I mean, America really is the only country, to my knowledge, that we have it the way it currently is, where the majority, and I don't know the exact. I actually at one point knew the percentage, but where the majority of the percentage is owned by just the average American family.
Yeah, it's
right?
funny that you mentioned that. I think you're right, and I didn't think about that. But in Europe, it's kind of that way.
Yeah, totally.
Everybody rents.
Everybody rents.
Yeah,
it's all owned by big corporations.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to shift that way. So I think we also want to focus on building our own portfolios.
Sure, big time.
Big time.
And that was the advice that I got, and I've said it on a lot of podcasts lately, but, my first mentor in real estate, he told me, he said, Austin, you got to buy real estate. He's like, you're going to, he very specifically said, you're going to wholesale a lot of houses, right? And I've done a couple thousand now. Yeah. And he's like, you're going to do a lot of retail and whatever else you're going to flip a bunch. And he's like, the mistake that most people make is they don't keep enough.
Yeah.
And he had made that mistake at the time, right?
We all have, right?
Yeah. And I made it.
Yeah.
He gave me that advice, and then I went and did everything.
You didn't follow it, huh?
I mean, I bought a few.
Yeah.
I bought a few, but I should have bought 100.
Yeah.
500.
People would tell me the same thing. And
like,
but the thing is, in hindsight, right? But you think about it, it's like, man, if I'm going to make 30,000,
I know.
40,000 on this deal,
You always look at the money that you
why
can make
not
right
take the
then and there.
deal
Yeah.
instead of the $300-$400 a month?
But then what ends up happening is if you make all that much money, then what do you do with the money? You eventually just got to go buy real estate.
Correct.
Because you put it in the stock market, but you're not going to put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
There's really only so many places. I mean, unless you're buying companies, which you could do.
Yeah.
You could go acquire companies. I know Cody Sanchez and Ryan Pineda, and there's people talking about that right now, right? Which I guess is good if you can figure out what companies to buy and I guess companies that don't take a lot of time and energy if you're already if your time and energy is already tied up elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
But really, the moral of the story is there's only a handful of places. If you get to a point in wholesaling or whatever where you're making 100, 200, 300 grand a month, well, you don't just put all that money in a checking account.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to invest in other things.
FDIC won't even cover it, right?
Exactly.
You got to do something with it.
Yeah. Totally.
So you believe then? Obviously, nobody's got a crystal ball, but you believe that maybe the end of the year, going into 2024, that the hedge funds might come back, huh?
Yeah, they tell me, the ones I talk to, they're definitely coming back. I talked to one guy that we're friends. He's a buyer. He's in New York. He's on, I think, Park Avenue in Manhattan. He's like, Victor, we're sitting on $1.5 billion. That we got nothing to do with it. We're sitting on it, and they're a smaller fund. So there's a lot of funds that are sitting on money. They can't deploy it because they're not allowed to, because they're afraid the market's going to tank more. And I think it might. I think it's possible. I think especially if the stock market crashes, like they say it is, it might affect residential housing more. And then now we talked about the multifamily, that a lot of those loans are coming due. Those guys are going to be hurting too. So I think we're still coming into some headwinds and some instability in the market in the next 6 months. But I think 6 to 8, maybe 9 months, I think everyone's going to come back in, because ultimately a really safe asset class is real estate.
Right.
It's like all the apartments in the U.S. are owned by Wall Street funds, right? Or companies that are funded by Blackstone or BlackRock, et cetera. So I think they're going to start doing the same with single-family residential properties.
Yeah.
So I think it really is the next asset class for Wall Street. So we really got to get into, for the guys that aren't in the business, get into wholesaling, or get into building a portfolio, which is going to be our focus, probably in 6 months or so.
Yeah.